Hi, welcome to Best Practices for State Publications. I'm Maeghan Kearney, and with me is Martha McTear. Martha, say hi. So this recording is, this class is going to be recorded. If you want to view a recording afterwards, we'll have it up on our website a few days. So let us get started. If you have any questions, by the way, just type them into the chat window. We'll try to answer them as we go along. And here is a brief overview of what we'll be talking about. So first we talk about places to find information about the best practices for state publications, and then quickly followed by the publication requirements. And then Martha is going to talk about things from the cataloger's point of view. And we're going to go into about being user-friendly for the people reading our publications, and then a bit into document longevity. Okay. And just excuse me a moment. Okay. So, places to find information. I'm going to include some links into the chat box. Here. So here is the Alaska Administrative Manual. There's a publication section in there. This section of the Alaska Administrative Manual is aimed at keeping the cost of our state publications low and making them at least somewhat uniform by giving us specific rules and guidelines that should apply to every state publication. This guide tells you how many colors you can use in the different types of publications. So there are different rules for newsletters versus actual softbound and hardbound publications. And then also what type of paper to use and when we're ever allowed to use foil, which is never unless you're in the Independent Governor's Office. Still need an exemption for that. But interesting to note, I didn't realize at the time that apparently it's mandated that we all print in double-sided. Okay, we also have department-specific publication guides. Oh, Diane, foil. Some publications, they have little bits of reflective foil on the publication. It's something that's very rare, and you need to actually ask for an exemption to be allowed to put them on. But it's very pretty when they do. So there's also department-specific publication guides. I believe each department has their own. If anyone would like an example, I have a link to the Fish and Game publication guide, which is amazingly thorough. So these are more detailed style guides for each department. So for example, in this Fish and Game one, it lists how their department prefers you to caption photos, what specific citation style you should use, and there's a dictionary of preferred spellings of commonly used terminology within their department. So it says where to put the hyphens and which things are one word or not too. Okay. Now, on to publication requirements. We have three main ones. First is the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is required to be on all publications. We give you links to the policy. There we go. It's also in there. Sorry for so many links. So we're all required to have the Americans with Disabilities Act compliance and accommodation notice. This lets people know that there are alternate forms of the publication available, such as Braille or having it be read aloud or a large print. There's an example below. There's various versions that you actually can put in different types of publications and notices that we have. If you go to the ADA link, it will actually have example blurbs for like newsletters versus full documents. Mostly with this one, we've had people request for electronic copies of the document so that they can take it to their own computer and magnify it so they can actually read it for people with low vision. Next one, they're all required to have a cost block. Now, well, it's required if it costs more than $1,500 in general funds per print job, or if it just costs, you see there, regardless of fund source, if it exceeds $1,500. This is the little blurb, there's an example there, that's on most publications. It says basically how much the publication cost, how much it cost per item. So it will say, for example, that a certain document costs $2 for each document to print. Also, sometimes it will have the purpose of the publication, where it was printed, and then if there is a specific statute that requires the printing of this publication, it will have a citation for the statute, so you can go look that up. We're seeing fewer of these as things are produced in small print, but they are required if it costs more than that amount. Okay. Next requirement is actually about us, the Alaska State Library. We have the Alaska State Publications Program. It's actually part of our statutes that we receive copies of every publication produced by state agencies. What we do with them is we receive 6 copies if it's something that's not available online, and 5 copies if it is. And then we send those out to the list of depository libraries that you see below. So 1 copy goes to Library of Congress, and then 2 of the universities, and then our list up in Anchorage. And we keep copies in our circulating collection and preservation collection. And this is to make sure that all Alaskans throughout the state have easy access to the publications, so they don't have to have them shipped from all over. And it's also for preservation purposes. Okay, so coming up next, we are going to switch to Martha. One second, as we have a tiny issue with a microphone.
Oh, okay. Hopefully you can all hear me now. I just had to switch places with Megan. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about how the information that you provide in your publications affects the catalog records that we create for the library. I'll give you a brief overview of what goes into catalog records, some issues that can affect those records, and suggestions on how to increase the findability of your document.
It's reversed. Go on to the other one. And I'll be on this side.
Catalog records include fields like title, creator, publication information, physical description, summaries, and subject headings. They also include information about editions, and in the case of serials, information about the frequency of publication and the numbering of the items. There are several ways that the information that you provide can help with catalog record creation and enable users to more easily locate your publications. Think about how you might look for a document if you weren't sure where to find it. Be clear, concise, and descriptive when you create your title. Use the same title throughout your document. Make it clear who you are, especially if you have a common name. Nobody likes to be confused with someone else. Use the same author statement in every publication. Creator information is added to our catalog and to an international library database. So this will be another place that people will find your work. You want to make it easy to distinguish from everyone else's. Providing information on who, where, and when your item was published or distributed also helps users locate the information they're looking for. Dates are especially important, but are most often omitted. Don't make the users guess. In the case of serials or continuing resources, make sure you provide information on how often an item is expected to be published and be consistent with your numbering. Again, you don't want to leave the researchers guessing when you have the information they need. Providing a summary or abstract not only helps researchers decide if an item meets their needs, but it also helps the cataloger assign appropriate controlled vocabulary terms, such as Library of Congress subject headings. Even if most people rely on keyword searches these days, these results are often based on the existence of these underlying controlled vocabularies. The next few slides include several examples of common issues we encounter with state publications. Oh, thank you. Sorry, left-handed versus right-handed. On the left are a few titles that can be difficult to locate in library catalogs. Once you separate the creator information from the title information, the actual titles you see here are newsletter, news and notes, newsletter again, and news spoke. When you're using these titles, when you're using these items in-house, the titles are sufficient, but once you release them to the wider world, they start to get lost amongst all the other items from other organizations out there. While there may not always be a better alternative, it is at least something to consider when you're creating titles. So this here is an example of a well-constructed title. Even if the creator information was stripped away, you would still know what the document is about. It stands on its own. Another issue that complicates matters is inconsistent title use with periodicals. When there's a title change, we have to create a new catalog record, even if you would consider it to be the same thing as the issue before it. We generally don't know the intentions of the creators of these documents and have to assume they meant to change the title from the issue in front of us on. So here you can see what appears to be the same newsletter, but with two different titles. On the right side of the slide, you can see one of the catalog records for these items. Currently, these two titles are on the same record. One is described as the alternate title. That will likely need to be addressed since it appears this title change is going to stick. If you look at the highlighted text at the bottom, you can see that there is also another record for a previous title, Master Gardener Update. So this newsletter has been known by 3 different titles to date. And even trying to explain this is confusing. And that's really the point I'm trying to make, is that this happens quite a bit. And the more titles and records there are, the harder it is for users to understand their search results and find what they're looking for. Another problem we see with serials is with numbering. You can see an example here. The issue number was repeated, so there were 2 issue 34s. In this one, the numbering scheme changed in one of the issues and then returned to its previous scheme. And also the wrong Roman numerals were used. While some of these problems may simply be typographical errors, they can be very confusing to users and librarians alike. We have to make additional notes which clutter the catalog record and make it less clear to those trying to understand our holdings. So these are just a few examples of the problems that we encounter when we're working with state documents. So why should all of this matter to you? Cataloging enhances the discoverability of documents. When we create a catalog record, we're providing another tool for discovery and making your documents more readily available to Alaskans. Our records are part of a statewide joint library catalog, which includes 74 public, academic, special, and K-12 libraries and serves 65% of the population in Alaska. In addition, we add these same records to WorldCat, which is an international library database, or basically a giant worldwide library catalog. This is also where users find materials from outside their local library and can request items through interlibrary loan. So in summation, when we catalog state publications, they're not only discoverable locally but worldwide. To make sure that interested users can find your publications, the work starts with you. Plan ahead, be clear, concise, and consistent. Think about how you might search for your materials and use that to inform what data you provide. And back to you, Megan.
Thank you. Okay, just be one moment. We had a tiny but completely unexpected, except that these things happen, technical issue. So let me just get my slides set up. Okay. So next section is on being user-friendly. Okay, so I have some examples later on, but just to talk briefly. So we have some things up on the slide about, making sure that your document's formatted for easy printing, make sure everything is actually legible. So one aspect that you need to consider when you're making your publications is how easily people can actually use these publications. Being on the creation end, sometimes we get involved in the making of the document and we think everything is fine and beautiful and easy to read, not thinking of the fact that someone who hasn't been working on it for 3 months might have some difficulty with things. So important to make sure that your document can actually print on a standard printer. We've seen many beautiful pamphlets that, one in specific, required 2 librarians, 40 minutes, and a good amount of brainstorming and eventually just manually forcing the printer to do what we wanted in order to actually get it printed out. The main issue here is a lot of electronic publications that I'm seeing lately have, they drastically switch paper sizes from the cover to the main content. So they'll have the cover and the back page printed out on like an 11 by 17, and the main content will be 8.5 by 11 size paper. Or in a few cases they meant for there to be a really nice fold-out map in the middle, which is fold-out map size, but not actual printer size. So those things will throw things for a loop. So the other idea is, like I said earlier, can people actually read it? If you have very small font, you can fit more content on a publication, but not many people have magnifying glasses on hand. Color text on a color background has to be done very carefully. I have seen some horrors out there in the world involving the color lime green. Unfortunately, I did not think to save those because it would have been a really nice example for you. But it's just a reminder that many people have black and white printers themselves, print in black and white to save money and toner, or are actually colorblind. So an example that I have coming up is a very handy chart. Here it is. So this is a chart for, I think, heating fuel prices. Pretty easy to read in color. We've got many different colors, and then at the bottom there's a little indicator for what each color actually means. But if it is in black and white, not so much. Now this one did something different than I've seen in some of the other ones. They have added symbols to each line so that you can actually still keep track if it's in black and white. The only thing they didn't consider is the fact that they were very, very tiny symbols. So the triangle kind of looks like the cross mark, and then I think there's like a little bow tie in there somewhere that I can't actually figure out. Also, while looking at this publication, my slowly aging eyes, I actually had to spend a few minutes trying to squint at it to try to even see what the symbols were supposed to be originally. So that is something to consider. Mostly we see this in regards to graphs and pie charts. I make sure that you actually have icons that are large enough to see, or that the colors are different enough that they'll print out in different tones when in black and white. Now on to some basic metadata. We're going very basic here because metadata itself is a huge topic that would be 3 classes. If you'd like to know more, I'm going to include a link in the chat window. This is for the Dublin Core. They have far more information than I can get into here. So basically, metadata, as it says there, it's data about data. And this is going to help you find the document through your internet searches, through Google, or through looking on your web page. There is a little list of the different fields that are generally used for metadata: title, author, subject, descriptor, etc. Now, if you want to find a metadata in like a PDF file, if you just go under the files and then properties, it will bring up all the metadata that is actually in that document. Now, I have an example. So here is a document that I grabbed. This is the effects of Prudhoe Bay reserve pit fluids on water quality, and I'm not going to go into the rest because it's a very long title. So we have this document. It's a PDF. Now, if I look at the general metadata in it, this is just bringing up the basic one that's under the file and properties. The title is actually a file name. That is where it is probably located, well, part of it at least, because it's actually a TIFF file, or is located on the home directory. This doesn't actually have any information here. So if it just was that, if we tried to do a search, we wouldn't actually come up with this document. The title, and if we did manage to find it somehow through Google, the title would be tar-mig-a and a bunch of numbers. But with this one, they did a custom view. So if you see there's a tab, 5 tabs over, it says custom, and this is what that actually looks like. So it has the title inputted, so it's effective for today, and then also the other information about it, about like the actual date, and then it has the Fish and Wildlife Service series number in case anyone was searching on that. And here's what it looks like for if I did a Google search. So it actually will bring up the title that they listed as the title in their metadata, and then the author, and then a little bit of the description. So people can put in a little bit of the description and information, and that's actually what's going to show up when you do a search for it. If that doesn't quite make sense to you, if you know about like hashtags, that's kind of basically how it's working. So, okay. So basically this part is saying to make sure you actually put a little bit of metadata into your document so that we can find them later on. I think currently with most state computers, it will just have the person's initials. So, okay, and then moving on to longevity, the actual keeping of our publications. First thing up is version control. This is keeping track of each version of the publication. If it's published, any new change has to have a new version. This is going to keep people from accidentally referring to an outdated bit of information while they believe that they're looking at the latest edition. So basically, if you print a document and it turns out that you had some incorrect information, you do need to mark that the new document is different than the old document. In general, it's best if previous editions note that the document is the latest version, in case if someone gets hold of that one only, but that's not always feasible. And many people will actually print, for the print documents, they'll print out updated pages and send them out to everyone who's received them, and then they'll just change the online version. So electronic name conventions, we need descriptive titles. This PowerPoint is titled Best Practices State Pubs with underscores between all of them. It's important to think about how you actually want to find your publications later. I have an example coming up, but you need to think about do we need to find it by year or by title. So we want descriptive titles that are fairly short but have enough information that people can actually tell what they're looking at. Also, generally speaking, we don't want to use spaces, underscores, or dashes if you need them, or just push the document together and have an uppercase letter for each new word. Otherwise, I grabbed a file there. What the web browser does if you are putting it online is it is going to put in a percentage sign for every blank space. And that is very annoying to have to type out. Okay. So I have an example here of, this is from our own files. Well, files of state publications. So it's in order of increasing legibility. The first one there actually has about 30 records in it for the various seasons. As you can see, it's all organized by, well, mostly except for when I decided to change for 2008, organized by season and then year. So everything is lumped together that way. The one in the middle makes a bit more sense and is easier to find things because it has the year first, followed by the season. And then the one at the end actually has a title of what it is in there, so we can tell what we're actually looking at. And this goes for file folders as well. You need to make sure that all your file folders are organized in such a way that someone won't accidentally delete 10 years of stored electronic publications because they didn't think it was something that was necessary to keep. Okay. And final thing on longevity, just because we are the state library, if you would like to make sure your publications are kept long-term, there's no better place than our historical archive. We've had people come to us from different state agencies trying to find some of their old reports. I'm not going to shame people by naming names, but more than a few of them, they had been cleaning their offices and they cleaned out all of their publications only to realize that those were the originals and no one in the entire department had kept them at all. So we had a copy still, thankfully, in the historical library. So when they need to refer back to things for different organizations and different committees, they actually could find the information they needed. Okay, so that is our presentation. Let me know if you have any questions. In the meantime, I'm just going to tell you our next class coming up is on visioning and spotting trends. That's Freya Anderson on September 17th. And I see a few people are typing. So agencies and the publications, agencies and the public can access our list publications. They are a library that has, they are open to the public. If you're in Anchorage, I think you do have to visit them. But I think they have, do they have an agreement with the other libraries where they'll send their documents over? Sorry, I'm speaking to Martha. Sorry, I do not remember enough about our list at the moment, but I know that you can look in their collections, and you do have access to them, I think. Okay. Okay, well, if nobody else has a question, I'm going to let you go a little early. Have fun on your lunch, and thank you all for coming.